Okay, thanks for joining me for this short webcast for P1 ACCA Belfast. Topic I've chosen for this is just the theory of governance. So it's just an intro really to what governance means. So let's kick off here. Um, in terms of the definition, the key definition of corporate governance, we get that if we go back quite a few years to the what we call the Cadbury report. Okay, so the specific definition that we have is just that governance or corporate governance is the system by which companies are directed and controlled. Okay, so I guess the thing that we need to think about is, why has corporate governance become such an important issue in the last sort of 25 years or thereabouts. And really the reason for that, and I guess the reason why you're having to sit an exam where this is a big element of the syllabus, is essentially, failures and scandals. One I can think of in particular, going back to the sort of early 1990s, is the Robert Maxwell scandal, and that related to basically a theft, as it were, from a pension fund of the Mirror Group by Robert Maxwell. So, over a period of 3 or 4 years, 5 years, maybe more even, leading to his untimely death. In the Mediterranean. He basically sort of fought with the authorities and how he was running his business, which the Mirror Group was part of, how he was running it. It was basically running it for his own ends and being dominant. So as a result of that, a lot of people who had been funding Mirror Group pensions missed out or lost out. So really what they felt that there wasn't enough control over the way that businesses are, particularly public businesses, are managed and controlled. Okay, so you'll appreciate sort of moving on from the early 90s. We've had a lot of different scandals, a lot of different failures, not least Enron in the early 2000s, the early noughties. Um, and as a result of Enron, one of the biggest sort of audit or accountancy firms in the world, went out of business, and that was Arthur Andersen. So, this is a very, very big area. It's important within the wider context of business itself, and it's certainly a key part of the P1 syllabus. So, what we're saying in effect is that there are rules and guidelines within corporate governance on a global level that need to be adhered to. Really, in the U.S. we have the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, which is in effect legislation. So companies based or connected with the UK are required to apply the legislation. In other words, they don't have a choice. For the UK, we have a CG code, a combined code, which derives from the Cadbury report in 1992, really based on what we call guidelines. Yeah. So in effect, there's a difference between the UK and the US in terms of how CG or corporate governance is perceived. And in the UK, we're required to apply the guidelines. And if we don't apply the guidelines, we've got to explain why in our reporting. Okay. So in terms of the purpose, therefore, as a sort of a summary for you, so the purpose of corporate governance is really to sort of monitor the people that control the company. That may well be the directors. Another way that I've seen it said is to control the controllers. Okay, and the objective of corporate governance is really to sort of monitor and improve performance to ensure that the company achieves its objectives without having those controls in place, or those guidelines in place at least. Would the company be in a position to be properly run and achieve its corporate objectives? So purpose and objective are quite important, and within the P1 syllabus you'll find that when you see exam questions, being able to quote or define even particular words and meanings. For example, the purpose of corporate governance or the objective of corporate governance is very, very important. Okay. Um, so in the questions you're going to find, let's say on this area of governance, what they're looking to do is to see how well you know what corporate governance means, and also how familiar you are with the what we call the combined code, so the combined code of corporate governance. And what they'll be looking to do is not only just test your knowledge, but also see how you apply that to different scenarios. The key thing at the professional level in P1 or any of the P subjects is, application skills. So it's not just good enough as it was at the F level to simply have knowledge. You've got to be able to apply. So within P1, we're looking at perhaps within the theory of governance, applying that core element, that core knowledge of theory of governance, let's say, to a particular company. And the general scenario, it's a fairly basic example, but the general scenario would be perhaps a company that doesn't perhaps have a good situation or good record in relation to corporate governance, and you're asked to advise them or indeed apply the code to their scenario, i.e. the scenario given in the question. Now the issue is with, let's say, theory of governance, if you don't know the nuts and bolts on it, you're really going to struggle. So, it's quite an interesting subject. Some describe it as a little bit dry. I don't think so. I think, theory of governance is interesting. There's a lot of history to it. So I think that just keep an open mind, and do bear in mind that this issue of CG or governance is all around you today. So do read up as well, and do look at technical articles. Okay, so listen, just the end of a very short webcast for you. I hope that it helped in some way, and we'll be uploading some further webcasts to be included in our courses. Okay, well, thanks for listening.